Hello, my name is Marilla MacGregor, and today I'm going to be talking about keeping up to date with children's fiction. To understand the definition of children's fiction, we need to have a working definition of children's literature and fiction. So children's literature can be described as the materials written to be read by children and young people, published by children's publishers, and stocked and shelved in the children's and/or young adult sections of libraries and bookshops. Fiction is defined as the type of book or story that is written about imaginary characters and events and does not describe real people or deal with facts. Children's fiction is therefore stories written about imagined characters and/or events and targeted at children. Children's fiction is actually a recent development in the field of literature and really only started to develop in the 18th century. Many of the early stories were instructional and moral and pious, and the earliest pleasure books included nursery rhymes and illustrated books. When John Newbery produced A Little Pretty Pocketbook in 1744, he really finally targeted children's enjoyment in the book industry. And importantly, Sarah Fielding published The Governess in 1749, which is arguably the first novel directed primarily at children. In the 19th century, the children's literature publishing business was really booming, and some authors started to write solely for children. However, fiction at this point was stratified. There were different stories that seemed appropriate for boys and different stories for girls. Moving into the 20th century, we come to a child-centered age, which saw the child as innocent and really focused on the child and its needs and pleasures. But throughout the century, we moved from the innocent child to the development of teen books and not so innocent children, and then to writing in so many different modes for all ages: realism, fantasy, comedy, younger children, older children, and now we even have multimedia books, which have tie-ins for their plots with games and movies. So the age range we're going to be discussing for children's fiction is ages 0 to 12, whereas young adult fiction would be for age range of 12 into the early 20s. So there are 4 types of books that fall into this age range for children's fiction, and while fiction can also come in the form of movies and games, for our collections we're really going to be focusing on print books. So the first type is picture books, shorter stories which have big illustrations which also contain plot details. Horton Hears the Who is one of my favorites, and Julian is a Mermaid is a newer one that I would recommend to everybody. Then you move on to early readers, which are slightly longer than picture books and introduce children to longer words. You have Go Dog Go and The Wish Tree here. What a beautiful cover. As children grow, they're going to move into chapter books, which are structured like novels, but have many more illustrations and are usually shorter in length. I loved the Boxcar Children, and I still do. And a new one which really brings upbeatness and positivity is My Happy Life. And then for the older children, ages 10 to 12, they'll be getting into middle grade novels which deal with preteen issues. So Harriet the Spy by Louise Fitzhugh is going to deal with her problems with her classmates and her budding talents as a writer. Matilda by Roald Dahl deals with family issues and precociousness as a child and love of books. And any of these books could be written in any mode: historical fiction, fantasy, science fiction. It's completely up to the author. In order to keep up to date in the field, it's important to be aware of how children's fiction is doing in the publishing arena. So in 2018, overall print sales in juvenile fiction increased 1.6%, the largest growth being in board books for really young readers. You can see it's a 10% change. And overall, the publisher revenue for this demographic grew by 1.6% as well, but unit sales in fiction decreased overall by 0.8%, while nonfiction increased by 0.4%, and this may have implications for the types of subjects we might see in fiction writing for children in the future. So you can take a look at the graphic here. In order to keep up with the marketplace, you should also look at trade magazines, which give reviews, lists, and suggestions. The Hornbook magazine is a wonderful resource for the best of children's literature, and they also have a guide online. The school library journal is a must for making your collections relevant and up to date, and IndieBound publishes a Kids Next newsletter, which you can often find for free in your public library. You can also check out helpful websites which give lists and reviews, like the Children's Book Review, which actually divides books by subject and age, Publishers Weekly, which provides a lot of publishing information, and Scholastic, which will give you articles about trends, give you reviews, book lists, and other resources for librarians and teachers. But in order to keep your collection current, you must keep abreast of the major award winners and purchase them. So you have the Caldecott Award given for the most distinguished American picture book, the Newbery Award for the most distinguished contribution to American literature for children, and purchasing the winners, here are the 2019 winners, is a must. Other awards are the Margaret Wise Brown Award given for a picture book which best represents what Margaret Wise Brown embodied, famous author of Goodnight Moon, of course, and the Theodore Seuss Geisel Award given for the most distinguished book for beginning readers published in English in the United States. Again, purchasing these winners is very good. Finally, you should review and purchase books based on the reviewed best of lists like children's notable lists from the ALSC and peer-reviewed lists like Goodreads and Amazon to see what is notable and what is popular. From these publications and lists, you can find out what is trending in children's fiction and what is not. So here you can see the current interest for 2019, such as graphic novels, fantastic and mundane animals, and genuinely scary books. But you can also see that they're predicting that spooky but not terrifying books will be popular within the next year. And I have a quote here: "With the arrival of age-appropriate books that explore scary elements without terrifying kids, they have the chance to dive into the genre in an entirely new way." So that's a bit of a change. You're also going to see more empowered female characters and a focus on pugs. Another way to find out what is popular or what is going to be popular is to look at film adaptations. So here are some coming out. We have Another Secret Garden, The Witches is getting a remake, and The Voyage of Dr. Dolittle, which should be interesting. You can also see what's fading from interest by looking at the trends. So truly terrifying books, like I said, are going out of style. Meta picture books, which were big a few years ago, have started to die out. So books like Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, no longer popular. A kind of funny one, Chickens, which was a 2015 trend, is no longer in style again, now it's dogs. But most importantly, homogeneous characters. So what you can find from looking at trends over time is what is now notable in the genre, and really the biggest takeaway is that diverse books are big in children's fiction. We need diverse and multicultural characters and different points of view. Quote here from a Scholastic article: "One takeaway about what kids love across the board: diversity in the characters they meet and the stories they read." Children's fiction is also tackling weightier issues like death, sexual orientation, and homelessness. That's no longer left just to YA fiction, and classics still hold sway, whether as reprints or reimaginings. So, for your collection development, to keep up to date, always stay abreast of the award winners and purchase them. Check the lists like the Children's Notable lists, but also user-made lists on Amazon, Goodreads, and other sites, and read the trade magazines to help with your purchasing decisions. Observe your library. What types of stories are well-worn and loved? Which books are checked out most frequently? This will indicate what your specific user community values. And be aware of upcoming or recent movie and TV adaptations of children's fictions, as these may increase the demand for the original book. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation and that it has been helpful for your children's fiction collections. Here are my resources consulted for your future reference. Thank you.